The morning sun cast golden light across the honey farms of New Jeju. Taman walked between the rows of white beehives, checking each one with practiced care. His boots crunched softly on the gravel path. The bees hummed their endless song, moving from flower to flower in the nearby fields. New Jeju was a small human colony on the edge of known space. Most aliens called it a backwater world. Nothing important ever happened here. The humans grew crops, raised livestock, and made honey. Lots of honey. Taman's honey was special. The bees had been modified back on Earth to produce honey with healing properties. People across 3 star systems bought it, though they never paid much attention to where it came from. Taman didn't mind being ignored. He liked his quiet life. He was 32 years old, with dark hair that always seemed a bit messy and kind eyes that crinkled when he smiled. He lived in a simple house at the edge of his farm. But his life wasn't lonely. Far from it. 3 large shapes lay in the grass near the biggest hive. To most visitors, they looked like exotic lizards or perhaps some kind of dragon from old Earth stories. One had scales the color of rubies. Another shimmered like polished silver. The third gleamed like emeralds in the sunlight. Each one was as large as a shuttle bus. These were Taman's wives, Hana, Yuna, and Jisoo. Hana lifted her crimson head as Taman approached. Her golden eyes watched him with obvious affection. She made a low rumbling sound in her throat that might have been laughter. Taman smiled and scratched under her chin the way she liked. "Good morning," he said softly. "Sleep well?" Hana nudged his hand with her snout. Yuna, the silver one, stretched her wings slightly without opening her violet eyes. Jisoo, always the most playful, bounded over and bumped Taman's shoulder gently with her head. He laughed and patted her emerald scales. To anyone watching, it looked like a farmer greeting his unusual pets. No one knew the truth. Taman preferred it that way. The peace of the morning shattered when 3 sleek shuttles descended from the sky. They bore the markings of the Galactic Council. Taman sighed. Inspections were rare but always annoying. Officials would poke around, check his permits, make sure everything followed regulations. They usually treated him like a simple farmer who couldn't understand their complicated rules. The shuttles landed in his main field, crushing some flowers. Taman winced but said nothing. A ramp extended from the largest shuttle, and a group of aliens emerged. The leader was a Kasrian named Ambassador Vrilt. He was tall and reptilian, covered in gray-green scales. He wore an elaborate uniform covered in medals and ribbons. His eyes were cold and yellow. Behind him came a dozen other aliens of various species. All of them looked bored and superior. "This is the agricultural station?" Vrilt asked, not bothering to look at Taman. "Primitive. Very primitive." One of the other inspectors, a blob-like creature with too many eyes, giggled. "Humans still do manual labor on these backwater worlds." "How quaint." Taman walked forward calmly. "Good morning. I'm Taman. Welcome to my farm. How can I help you?" Vrilt finally looked at him. The ambassador's expression showed clear contempt. "We're here on official council business. There have been reports of unregistered sentient beings on this colony. We must investigate." "Unregistered sentient beings?" Taman raised an eyebrow. "Everyone on New Jeju is properly registered. I can show you the records. Nevertheless, we will conduct a full inspection." Vrilt gestured to his team. "Show us your facilities." Taman led them through the farm. He explained how the bees were cared for, how the honey was harvested, how the modification process worked. The aliens barely listened. They poked at things with scanning devices, muttered to each other in languages Taman didn't understand, and generally acted like they were visiting a zoo. When they reached the area where Hana, Yuna, and Jisoo still lay in the grass, Vrilt stopped. His eyes widened slightly. "What are those creatures?" he demanded. "My wives," Taman said simply. The entire inspection team froze for a moment. Then they burst into laughter. It was loud, mocking laughter that rang across the fields. Several of the aliens had to lean on each other. They were laughing so hard. "Your wives," Vrilt wheezed. "The human keeps exotic pets and calls them wives. This is incredible. Wait until the council hears about this." The blob creature was rolling on the ground. "How charmingly barbaric. Do they also marry their livestock?" Another inspector, an insect-like being with clicking mandibles, added. "Humans are such an adorable species. They form emotional attachments to anything." Taman's expression didn't change. He'd heard worse from aliens who thought humans were primitive. The 3 dragons watched the scene with ancient, knowing eyes. They didn't move or react to the mockery. They simply observed. These are sophisticated creatures, Taman said calmly. Perhaps you should scan them properly. Scan them? Vrilt wiped tears from his eyes. Why would we waste energy scanning your pets? Come now, human. Show us the rest of your little farm so we can file our report and leave this tedious planet. The inspection continued. The aliens grew more careless and rude as they went. One knocked over a stack of honey jars without apologizing. Another trampled through a flower bed Taman had spent weeks cultivating. Vrilt made snide comments about everything he saw. Finally, they returned to the landing area. Vrilt was dictating notes into a recording device. Colony status minimal. Technology level adequate for basic agriculture. Population harmless. Recommendation: continue to ignore. As they prepared to board their shuttles, one of the younger inspectors, a furry creature with 4 arms, noticed the beehives again. He walked over to the nearest one and examined it with his scanner. Ambassador, these hives are actually quite sophisticated. The genetic modification on the insects is really impressive work. Vrilt waved his hand dismissively. Humans got lucky with some old Earth science. It doesn't mean they're intelligent. He turned to look at the hives himself, then, almost casually, he kicked one. The hive toppled over with a crash. Bees poured out, angry and confused. Taman started forward, concern written across his face. His bees wouldn't hurt anyone, but they were scared and their home was destroyed. Before he could say anything, Hana stood up. She moved with liquid grace, rising from the grass to her full height. Her crimson scales seemed to glow in the afternoon sun. She took one step toward Vrilt, then another. The ambassador turned, still smiling at his petty cruelty. Then Hana spoke. You will repair the damage you have caused, or you will answer for it. The words came out in perfect galactic standard. Not just basic standard, but the aristocratic dialect used by ancient noble houses. Every word was pronounced with flawless precision and quiet authority. The entire inspection team froze. Vrilt's yellow eyes went wide. His mouth fell open. The recording device slipped from his fingers and clattered on the ground. Around him, every single inspector stood completely still, staring at the crimson dragon who had just spoken. Taman watched their shocked faces and allowed himself a small smile. His quiet life was about to get very complicated. Nobody moved. The only sound was the angry buzzing of displaced bees and the soft whisper of wind through the grass. Ambassador Vrilt stared at Hana like he'd seen a ghost. His gray-green scales had turned pale. Hana took another step forward. She was massive up close, towering over the aliens. Her golden eyes fixed on Vrilt with an intensity that made him stumble backward. I asked you a question, Hana said. Her voice was steady and cold. Will you repair what you broke? Yuna rose next, her silver scales catching the light. She moved to stand beside her sister wife. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of vast knowledge. We are Draconai, the first wanderers. The star touched. Your ancestors called us the architects of the silver paths. The blob-like inspector made us sound like a deflating balloon. Impossible. The Draconai are myths, children's stories. Jisoo stood as well, completing the triangle around the terrified inspection team. Her emerald scales seemed to shimmer. We have lived among the cosmos for 40,000 of your years. We walked the stars when your species were still learning to make fire. Taman remained where he was, watching calmly. He'd known this moment would come eventually. Part of him had hoped it wouldn't be today, but another part was glad his wives no longer had to hide. Vrilt found his voice, though it shook. This is a trick. Some kind of translator device. Advanced technology hidden in those creatures. Creatures? Hana's tone grew sharper. Is that what you call beings who taught your ancestors how to fold space? Who gave your people the gift of faster-than-light travel? One of the inspectors, a thin alien with too many joints, was frantically scanning Yuna with every device he had. Ambassador, these readings don't make sense. The energy signatures are off the scale. The biological complexity is beyond anything in our databases. Yuna glanced at him with her violet eyes. Your scanners are toys. They cannot properly measure what we are. She paused, then added more gently, but your curiosity is noted. At least one of you seeks to understand rather than mock. Taman finally stepped forward. Maybe we should all sit down and talk about this calmly. Vrilt spun to face him. You knew what they were all along. You've been hiding sentient beings of enormous value from the Council. Value? Taman's voice remained quiet, but there was steel underneath. They're not valuable because of what they can do. They're valuable because they're people. They're my family. Your family? Vrilt's laugh was bitter and frightened. You're a human farmer. They're ancient beings of immense power. This doesn't make sense. Hana moved closer to Taman, lowering her great head to his level. Let me tell you how we met, Ambassador. Perhaps it will help you understand. 3 years ago, Taman had been working late in his fields. He'd heard a terrible crash from beyond his property line. When he investigated, he found Hana lying in a crater. Her scales were damaged. She was bleeding strange, luminous blood. Her dimensional fold had failed mid-jump. He could have called the authorities, Hana said softly. Could have sold me to the highest bidder. Drake and I are rare. Even injured, I would have made him wealthy beyond measure. Instead, Taman had dragged her into his barn. He'd spent his savings on medical supplies. He fed her from his own meager stores. For months he cared for her, asking nothing in return. He read to me, Hana continued, poetry from old Earth, stories about people who chose kindness over profit. He would sit beside me and talk about his bees, about the flowers, about the simple joy of watching things grow. Yuna picked up the story. When Hana healed enough to contact us, I came with Jisu to bring our sister home. We expected to find her imprisoned or enslaved. Instead, we found her living peacefully with a human who treated her with respect and genuine affection. He offered us tea, Jisu added with a hint of amusement. Honey tea. He sat down with 2 more Draconai appearing in his home and offered us tea like we were neighbors stopping by for a visit. Taman shrugged. You were Hana's family. That made you important. We stayed for a week, Yuna said. We observed. We talked with him. We learned about his life, his dreams, his philosophy. Do you know what we discovered, Ambassador? Vrilt said nothing. He was still processing everything he was hearing. We discovered a being who understood what most of the galaxy has forgotten. That power without wisdom is meaningless. That strength without compassion is cruelty. That the truest measure of civilization is not how you treat your equals, but how you treat those you consider lesser. The thin inspector was still scanning. Ambassador, if these are truly Draconai, this changes everything. The technology they possess, the knowledge they could share. We share nothing with those who see us as resources. Hana interrupted. We withdrew from galactic society millennia ago for precisely this reason. Too many races measured worth in firepower and territory. Too few understood the value of gentle strength. Vrilt's fear was being replaced by calculation. Taman could see it in his eyes. The ambassador was starting to think about what this discovery meant politically. The council must be informed, Vrilt said. Beings of your caliber cannot simply hide on a backwater colony. You have responsibilities to galactic civilization. We have no such responsibilities, Yuna replied. We chose to withdraw. We choose where we live and with whom. And you choose this? Vrilt gestured at Taman and the simple farm around them. You choose a primitive human farmer over the chance to guide galactic development? All 3 dragons moved closer to Taman. The message was clear. This human farmer showed my wife mercy when she was helpless, Hana said. He showed her kindness with no expectation of reward. He treated her as a person, not a prize. Yes, Ambassador. We choose him, Vrilt's expression hardened. I don't think you understand the situation. The Galactic Council has authority over all sentient beings in registered space. If you refuse to cooperate, you'll be classified as a potential threat. A threat? Jisu's voice was soft but dangerous. Ambassador, you have no idea what a real threat looks like. Are you threatening a council official? Vrilt demanded. No, Taman said firmly. He stepped between the ambassador and his wives. No threats. But you need to understand something. My wives are free beings. They're not property. They're not resources. They're people who have chosen to make their home here. If the council can't accept that, then the council is wrong. The wind picked up slightly, rustling through the fields. Somewhere in the distance, more bees hummed their patient song. The inspection team looked at each other nervously. Vrilt pulled out his communication device. I'm calling for military support. This situation is beyond my authority to handle. Yuna tilted her head slightly. Before Vrilt could send the message, his device went dead. So did every piece of technology the inspection team carried. Scanners, communicators, even the power cells in their environmental suits all went dark. How did you? Vrilt started. We are Draconai, Yuna said simply. Your technology is based on principles we taught your ancestors. Do you truly think we cannot control it? High above, something massive began to descend through the clouds. It was a ship, but unlike any vessel in the current galactic fleet, It was elegant and terrifying at once, built of materials that seemed to drink in light. The inspection team looked up in growing horror. Taman recognized it. He smiled slightly. "That would be my father-in-law," he said calmly. "This might be a good time for everyone to stay very calm and very polite." The ship settled onto Taman's largest field with impossible gentleness. Despite its enormous size, it didn't crush a single flower. The craft was obsidian black with veins of silver running through its hull. Just looking at it made the inspection team's eyes hurt. Their brains couldn't quite process the geometry of its construction. A ramp extended. Down it walked a dragon that made Hana, Yuna, and Jisoo look small. His scales were the color of polished midnight. His eyes burned like distant stars. When he moved, reality seemed to bend slightly around him. This was Daehyun, ancient beyond measure, father to Hana and uncle to countless generations of Draconai scattered across the cosmos. "Which of you threatened my son-in-law?" His voice was deep enough to vibrate in the chest. Ambassador Vrilt made a sound like a frightened mouse. Several of his team members simply fainted. The blob creature deflated completely into a puddle. Taman walked forward calmly. "Hello, Daehyun. Good to see you again." The massive dragon lowered his head and Taman reached up to scratch behind his jaw ridge. Daehyun rumbled with pleasure. "Hello, son of Earth. I hope these visitors have been treating you with proper respect." "They've been about as respectful as we expected," Taman said with a slight smile. Daehyun turned his burning gaze on Vrilt. "Explain yourselves." Vrilt couldn't speak. His mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. Finally, the thin inspector stepped forward. His voice shook, but he managed to form words. "Sir Honored Ancient, we came for a standard inspection. We didn't know, we had no idea." "You had no idea that Drake and I lived here?" Daehyun's tone was cold. "Yet you came to a world where my daughter makes her home and treated its inhabitants with contempt?" "We thought they were pets." Vrilt finally gasped out. "The human called them his wives and we thought it was primitive ignorance." Taman put a hand on Daehyun's foreleg. "It's all right. They didn't understand. But they're learning now." "They mocked you," Hana said quietly. "They damaged your property." "They laughed at our family," Jisoo added, her emerald eyes flashing. "And now they're terrified and surrounded," Taman replied. "I think they've learned their lesson about making assumptions." Daehyun studied his son-in-law for a long moment. Then he made a sound that might have been a chuckle. "You have a gentle heart, Taman. Too gentle for most of this galaxy." "Maybe the galaxy needs more gentleness," Taman said. Above them, the sky began to fill with ships. Dozens, then hundreds. Every military vessel within 10 light-years was converging on New Jeju. Daehyun's vessel had triggered every alarm system in 3 sectors. Warning signals were spreading across the galactic network. Yuna looked up at the approaching fleet. "They're panicking. They've detected a Draconai dreadnought and they think it's an invasion. Should I explain to them that it's not?" Daehyun asked. "Let them come," Vrilt said suddenly. He'd found his courage, or perhaps his desperation. "Let them see what you are. Let the whole galaxy know that ancient beings of immense power are hiding on human worlds." Taman looked at him. "Why would you want that, Ambassador?" "Because it changes everything." Vrilt's eyes were wild. "The Cassarian Empire, my people. We built our entire civilization on technology we claimed to discover. If the galaxy learns we were given it by the Draconai, our prestige crumbles. Our authority dissolves." The truth clicked into place. Taman understood now why Vrilt had come. "You weren't here for a random inspection. Someone told you the Draconai were here. Someone who wanted this confrontation." Vrilt laughed bitterly. "Yes, someone in the council suspected. They sent me to investigate. If I could bring back Draconai technology, or better yet, capture the dragons themselves, I would be a hero. My family would gain immense status." "And when you realized you couldn't capture us?" Hana asked. "Then I decided to expose you. If I'm going to fall, I'll take everyone's comfortable lies with me." Vrilt pulled out a backup communicator, one that Yuna hadn't disabled. "The galaxy will know the truth. That the mighty civilizations of the Council are built on ancient charity, not innovation." He activated the device. Immediately, his voice began broadcasting across every channel the Council used. "This is Ambassador Vrilt. I am on New Jeju Colony with 3 confirmed Draconai and 1 Draconai dreadnought. The ancient ones are real. They are here. And they have chosen to side with humanity." The broadcast spread like wildfire. Within minutes, every major civilization in the galaxy knew. Panic spread across 1,000 worlds. The approaching fleet tripled in size. Taemin sighed. You've just made things very complicated, Ambassador. Good, Vrilt spat. Let the galaxy burn with the truth. Daehyun growled low in his throat. I could silence you permanently for this. You could, Vrilt agreed. But it's too late. The message is already spreading. Taemin watched the sky fill with warships. Fighters, cruisers, dreadnoughts of a dozen different species. All coming to New Jeju. All prepared for war. We need to leave, one of Vrilt's team said. Before shooting starts. No one is leaving, Daehyun said. You wanted the galaxy to know the truth? Then you'll stay and face the consequences of your revelation. Messages poured in. The Galactic Council demanded explanations. Military commanders asked for orders. Diplomatic channels lit up with frantic communications. And at the center of it all was one small honey farm on a backwater world. Taemin's communicator buzzed. It was Minho, his best friend who ran the colony's shipping operations. Taemin, what's happening? There are warships everywhere. People are scared. Tell everyone to stay calm, Taemin said.
Stay in their homes.
This will be resolved peacefully. How can you be sure? Taemin looked at his wives, at Daehyun, at the terrified inspection team. Because I'm not going to let it be anything else. An hour later, a new ship arrived. This one bore the seal of the Galactic Council itself. Out stepped 5 council members, representatives of the most powerful civilizations in known space. They approached cautiously, eyes wide at the sight of Daehyun's dreadnought. The lead counselor was a crystalline being named Shara. She spoke in chiming tones. We come to negotiate. To understand, please do not see our fleets as aggression. They are defense, nothing more. Defense against what? Taemin asked. Against the unknown, Shara replied honestly. We thought the Draconai were legends. Finding them real and allied with humanity changes the balance of power in the galaxy. We're not allied with humanity, Yuna corrected. We're allied with this human. There's a difference. Then help us understand, Shara pleaded. Why him? Why here? Why now? Hana stepped forward. Because 3 years ago this human farmer saved my life and asked for nothing in return. Because he treated me with kindness when I was helpless. Because he sees worth in beings, not in their power or utility. That's it? Another counselor scoffed. You upend galactic politics because a farmer was nice to you? You say that like kindness is common, Jisoo replied. When was the last time your civilization chose mercy over profit? Gentleness over dominance? The counselors had no answer. Taemin spoke quietly. You're asking the wrong questions. You want to know what this means for trade routes and military advantage and political power. But the real question is simpler. Can the galaxy accept that some beings just want to live in peace? That not everything has to be about conquest or control? Pretty words, the scoffing counselor said. But the reality is you've gained access to beings who could destroy civilizations. That makes you a threat. Then I suppose, Taemin said calmly, you'd better decide whether you want to treat me as a threat or as a neighbor who just wants to tend his bees. The sky above them filled with weapons locked and ready. Hundreds of civilizations waited for orders. One wrong word could ignite a war that would burn across the stars. Daehyun looked at Taemin. What would you have me do, son of Earth? Everyone waited for his answer. Taemin looked up at the sky filled with warships, hundreds of vessels from dozens of species, all armed and ready. One human farmer standing at the center of what could become the greatest war the galaxy had ever seen. I'd like you to do nothing, Taemin said to Daehyun. The massive dragon tilted his head. Nothing? Nothing violent, Taemin clarified. Just stay here with your family. Let me talk to them. You want to negotiate with an armada using words? The scoffing counselor laughed. How very human. Yes, Taemin agreed. How very human. He pulled out his communicator and set it to broadcast on all frequencies. This is Taemin of New Jeju Colony. I'd like to speak with whoever is commanding the Cassarian fleet. Silence for a moment. Then a gruff voice responded. This is Admiral Corvus of the Cassarian Empire. State your business, human. I'd like to invite you down for tea, Admiral. Just you, no weapons, no tricks. Let's talk face to face, more silence. Then, you're joking. I'm completely serious. I have some very good honey tea, and I think we should have a conversation before anyone does something they'll regret. Why would I come down there? You're surrounded by ancient weapons of unimaginable power. Exactly, Taemin said, which is why it's very important that we talk, because I don't want anyone to get hurt. And I suspect you feel the same way. 10 minutes later, a small shuttle landed near Taemin's house. Admiral Corvus emerged. He was an older Castrian with battle scars across his scales, and eyes that had seen too much war. He approached cautiously, his hand never far from his sidearm. Taemin met him halfway, carrying 2 cups of tea. He offered one to the Admiral. Corvus stared at it. "You're serious about the tea?" "Always serious about tea," Taemin replied. "Please sit." They sat on the grass. Above them, hundreds of warships watched. Behind them, the Draconai observed. The entire galaxy held its breath. "You have courage, human," Corvus said. "Stupid courage, perhaps, but courage nonetheless." "I prefer to think of it as faith in common sense," Taemin said. "You seem like a reasonable person, Admiral. Why did you really come here with 300 warships?" Corvus sipped the tea. His eyes widened slightly at the taste. "This is exceptional. Thank you. The bees are modified for medicinal properties. Now about those warships?" The Admiral sighed. "I came because I was ordered to. The Council panicked when they detected the Draconai dreadnought. They thought it was an invasion. I'm supposed to contain the threat and retrieve the ancient beings for study." "Study?" Hana's voice cut in. She had moved closer, silent as smoke. "You mean imprisonment and exploitation?" Corvus had the grace to look embarrassed. "That's the polite way the Council phrased it, yes. But you don't like those orders," Taemin observed. "I'm a soldier. I follow orders." Corvus paused. "But no, I don't like them. I've fought 17 wars in my career. Most of them were stupid. Most of them were about pride and resources and territory. The older I get, the more tired I am of fighting." "Then don't fight this one," Taemin said simply. "It's not that easy." "Why not?" Corvus gestured at the sky. "Because if I disobey, someone else takes command. Someone younger, more eager to prove themselves. Someone who might actually attack. At least with me in charge, I can keep the trigger-happy fools on a leash." Taemin nodded slowly. "So you're here to prevent war by threatening war." "It's a delicate balance." Una settled nearby, her silver scales gleaming. "Admiral, may I ask you a question?" Corvus jumped slightly. "Please do. Do you know the true history of your people's rise to power?" The Admiral frowned. "Of course. The Castrian Empire discovered ancient technology in the Vreth ruins. We reverse-engineered it and became a spacefaring civilization. That's the official story," Una said gently. "Would you like to know the truth?" "I'm not sure I do," Corvus admitted. 4,000 years ago, the Castrian people were dying. Una continued anyway. "A plague swept through your homeworld. Your primitive medicine couldn't stop it. In desperation, your ancestors called out to the stars, begging for help." Corvus set down his teacup. His hands were shaking slightly. 3 Draconai heard that call," Una said. They came to your world. They brought medicine. They brought knowledge. They taught your people how to reach the stars so you would never be trapped and helpless again." "No," Corvus whispered. "We discovered that technology. We earned our place in the galaxy." "You did earn it," Una replied. "By surviving. By rebuilding. By becoming better than you were. But the technology was a gift, not a discovery. Your ancestors knew this. They were grateful. But later generations found shame in that gratitude. They rewrote the history to claim conquest instead of charity." Jisoo activated a holographic display. Images floated in the air between them. Ancient Castrian texts hidden away in secret archives. Records of the Draconai's visit. Proof of everything Una had said. "How did you—" Corvus started. "Your government keeps those records locked in their deepest vaults," Jisoo said. "But there are no locks that can keep out the ones who built the keys." Corvus stared at the proof of his civilization's greatest secret. His expression cycled through denial, anger, and finally a kind of tired acceptance. "Does it change anything?" he asked quietly. "Does it matter how we got the technology if we've built a great civilization with it?" "That depends," Taemin said. "Do you think your civilization is great because of its weapons and territory? Or because of what your people have become?" "I don't know anymore," Corvus admitted. "Then maybe that's what you should figure out," Taemin suggested. "Before you decide whether to attack my home." Counselor Shara approached, her crystalline form chiming softly. "Admiral, the Council is requesting status reports. They want to know if you're engaging the enemy." "The enemy?" Corvus looked at Taemin, at the Draconai watching calmly, at the simple farm around them. "I see no enemy here. I see a farmer, his family, and a great deal of misunderstanding." The council won't accept that answer, Shara warned. Then the council needs new answers. Corvus stood up. Thank you for the tea, Taman. It was excellent. You're welcome. There's more if you'd like, Corvus smiled sadly. I would like that very much. But I have a fleet to command and some very difficult decisions to make. He walked back to his shuttle. Taman watched him go, hoping he'd said enough. Hoping that one reasonable person in the right position might be enough to prevent catastrophe. Dahyun approached. That was well done, son of Earth, but you know it may not be enough. Fear often overrides reason. I know, Taman said, but I had to try. Above them, the fleet began to move. Ships repositioned themselves. Weapon systems powered up. Taman felt his wives tense beside him. Then Corvus's voice came over the open channel, broadcasting to every ship in the system. All vessels. This is Admiral Corvus. Stand down. I repeat, stand down. There will be no engagement. New Jeju is not a threat. Anyone who fires without my direct order will be court-martialed. Admiral, the Council has ordered. Someone protested. I am the commanding officer of this fleet. Corvus interrupted. And I am ordering you to stand down. If the Council wants to fight this battle, they can come here themselves and explain why a peaceful farming colony deserves to be attacked. Taman let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. It wasn't over. The Council would protest. There would be political consequences. But for now, today, there would be no war. Hana nuzzled his shoulder gently. You did well. We did well, Taman corrected. All of us together. The sun was setting over New Jeju. The bees were returning to their hives. And somewhere above, hundreds of civilizations were beginning to ask themselves difficult questions about power, pride, and what really mattered. 3 days after Admiral Corvus stood down his fleet, the galaxy was still in chaos. The revelation that the Draconi were real had shaken every major civilization. But even more shocking was what happened next. 17 different species came forward publicly. One by one, they admitted the truth. The Draconi had helped them too. Some had been saved from extinction. Others had been given the knowledge to reach the stars. Each had hidden the truth, ashamed of needing help, proud of claiming self-sufficiency. The Galactic Council was in turmoil. Half of its most powerful members had built their authority on lies. Trust was crumbling. Alliances were fracturing. And at the center of it all was one small human colony that just wanted to be left alone. Taman spent those 3 days doing what he always did. He tended his bees. He harvested honey. He checked on his neighbors to make sure they were safe. The fleet still surrounded New Jeju, but Admiral Corvus had kept his word. No one attacked. On the 4th day, the Council sent a formal delegation. Not soldiers this time, but diplomats and historians. They came with questions and recording devices. They wanted to understand. Counselor Shara led them. She approached Taman respectfully this time. We would like to speak with the Draconi, to learn the full history, to understand what we've forgotten. That's up to them, Taman said. They're free beings. They can choose whether or not to talk to you. The Draconi agreed to share some of their history. Not all of it. Not their deepest secrets, but enough to help the younger races understand their place in the cosmos. Yuna spoke for hours, telling stories of civilizations rising and falling. She explained how the Draconi had once believed it was their duty to guide younger races. How they'd given gifts of knowledge and technology freely. How they'd hoped those gifts would be used for growth and understanding. But most races used our gifts for conquest. Yuna said sadly. They built weapons with our technology. They claimed superiority over their neighbors. They forgot the purpose of advancement was to better themselves, not to dominate others. So you left, Shara said. We grew tired, Hana replied, tired of watching the same patterns repeat. Species would rise, claim greatness, oppress others, and eventually fall. We withdrew to find beings who understood that true strength is choosing peace over power. And you found that in a human farmer? One of the diplomats seemed skeptical. Yes, all 3 dragons said together. Jisoo stepped forward. Let me tell you what makes Taman special. It's not intelligence, though he's clever. It's not strength, though he's brave. It's that when faced with power, he chooses kindness. When given the chance to profit from our presence, he chooses our happiness instead. He asked us what we wanted, Hana added, not what we could do for him. What we wanted. Do you understand how rare that is? In 40,000 years, we've met precious few beings who thought to ask. The delegation stayed for days. They interviewed Taman, the dragons, even other colonists. Minho told them about the time Taman had given away his entire honey supply to help a neighboring colony through a food shortage. Ara, the elderly colony administrator, spoke about how Taman had spent months helping her write letters to her grandchildren on distant worlds. "He's just a good person," Ara said simply. "Nothing fancy or complicated about it. He's just genuinely kind." While the diplomats gathered their information, Admiral Corvus visited Taman again. They sat in the same spot, drinking the same honey tea. "The council wants me to maintain the blockade," Corvus said. "They're afraid of what might happen if the Draconai leave New Jeju." "And what do you think should happen?" Taman asked. "I think the council is afraid of the wrong thing," Corvus replied. "They're afraid of Draconai technology falling into the wrong hands. But the real danger is that we've built an entire galactic civilization on pride and lies." "What will you do?" "I'm retiring," Corvus said. It clearly surprised him to say it out loud. "I'm old, Taman. I've seen too much war. And sitting here drinking tea with you while my government panics has made me realize something. I've been serving the wrong ideals. What will you do instead?" "I don't know yet. But I'd like to figure it out somewhere quiet. Maybe a place with good honey and people who value peace over power." He smiled. "You wouldn't happen to know anywhere like that?" Taman smiled back. "I might know a place. We could always use someone with your experience. Especially someone who knows how to keep jumpy military types from doing anything stupid. I'll think about it." 2 weeks later, the council made their decision. They couldn't force the Draconai to do anything. They couldn't punish New Jeju without looking like tyrants, so they did the only thing they could. They adapted. The council announced sweeping reforms. First contact protocols were rewritten to emphasize respect and consent. The hierarchy of civilizations was abolished. Each species would be treated as equals, regardless of military power or technological advancement. It wasn't perfect. Many powerful civilizations protested. Some threatened to leave the council, but others, tired of the old ways, supported the changes. The galaxy was transforming, slowly and painfully. Taman watched it all from his porch, his wives beside him in their humanoid forms. They could shapeshift, something they'd revealed casually one evening. In their humanoid shapes, they were beautiful women with scales that caught the light and eyes that still held ancient wisdom. "Did we do the right thing?" Taman asked. "Exposing all of this? Shaking up the entire galaxy?" "You gave them a choice," Hana said. "You showed them there's another way to live. What they do with that knowledge is up to them. Some will choose well," Yuna added. "Some won't. That's the nature of freedom." "But you planted seeds," Jisoo said, leaning her head on Taman's shoulder. "And you're very good at helping things grow." Months passed. Life on New Jeju returned to normal, or as normal as it could be. The fleet eventually withdrew, though Admiral Corvus stayed. He bought a small farm next to Taman's and started raising strange alien livestock. He seemed happy. Other changes came too. Beings from across the galaxy started visiting New Jeju. Not to demand or threaten, but to learn. They wanted to understand how a simple farmer had changed everything. They wanted to see the place where ancient dragons chose to make their home. Taman welcomed them all. He served them honey tea. He showed them his bees. He talked about the importance of patience and kindness in doing work that mattered to you. Some understood. Some didn't. But all of them left thinking about things differently than when they arrived. 1 year after the inspection that changed everything, Ambassador Vrilt came back. He looked different, humbler. He approached Taman's farm on foot, carrying no technology or weapons. "I came to apologize," Vrilt said, "for my arrogance, for my cruelty, for nearly starting a war because I couldn't see past my own pride." "Apology accepted," Taman said simply. "Would you like some tea?" They sat together, former adversaries, now just two beings trying to understand the universe. Vrilt asked questions about beekeeping, about the Draconai, about how to let go of shame and build something better. As the sun set, Hana, Yuna, and Jisoo joined them. They'd become comfortable showing their true selves more often now. 4 children played nearby. Hybrid younglings who shifted between forms and spoke a dozen languages. They chased each other through the flowers, laughing with pure joy. "What happens now?" Vrilt asked, watching the children play. "Where does the galaxy go from here?" Taman smiled. "The same place it always goes, forward. Hopefully a little wiser than before. Hopefully a little kinder, And you? What will you do? What I've always done. Tend my bees. Love my family. Try to leave the world a little better than I found it. Taman paused, then added, It's not complicated. Most important things aren't. High above, stars began to appear in the darkening sky. Each one represented worlds and civilizations, all of them now questioning what they thought they knew. All of them learning that the measure of greatness wasn't found in weapons or territory, but in the courage to be gentle and the wisdom to choose peace. And somewhere among those stars, other Draconai watched and waited. Perhaps, they thought, there was hope for the younger races after all. Perhaps there were more beings like Taman out there, waiting to be found. Beings who understood that true strength was choosing not to dominate, but to cherish. The galaxy was learning. It had a good teacher,